Hello and welcome back. Next we have Sarah talking about accessibility. So anything you'd like to say before we get started, Sarah? We're happy to have you here.
Hi, everyone. I recorded my intro already in my video just in case if I had any connection issues. But my name is Sara Qawwas. I work at Flutter as an Android architect. I've been there for about 2 years, and I've been helping them make their app accessible. And that's been a great journey for me, so I want to help you guys make your apps accessible as well. Just a little bit about me during quarantine. I've just been dyeing my hair fun colors and reading a whole lot of fiction. So there's just a little bit about me. I hope you guys enjoy my video, and I'll answer your questions afterwards.
Great, thank you. Looking forward to it. And those questions you can feel free to put in to Sarah's channel that we have in Slack. And with that,
My name is Sara Qawwas, and I'll be talking to you about the benefits of making your apps accessible. A little bit about me. I work at Foot Locker as an Android architect. I've been there for about 2.5 years, and I'm helping Foot Locker make their Android app accessible. I put my Twitter handle here in case you want to reach me after the presentation. Some statistics. 90% of people in the US use the internet. 26%, or 1 in 4, have a disability. In 2019, 51.8% of all mobile users were Android users. What does this mean for us as Android developers? 62 million Android users can benefit from making your app accessible. I'm going to talk about types of disability and how someone with a disability may use your application, why we do all the work, available guidelines and standards, and examples of how to test your app and how to improve it. There are 4 types of disabilities. The first type is mobility. This can vary from intermittent use of a wheelchair to hand dexterity issues. Users may employ a hardware device such as an accessibility switch to control your apps. Pictured here is a 2-button switch. A switch can have 1 or more buttons to control the mobile device. This can be configured to perform specific actions. Another type of disability is cognitive. This can vary from dyslexia to cerebral palsy. A user with a cognitive disability may use action blocks to set up routines. Pictured here is action blocks as widgets that were set up to do anything the Google Assistant can do. This was set up to call a specific person or turn on and off the lights. Another type of disability is hearing. This can vary from slight hearing loss to complete deafness. Users with a hearing disability may use closed captions or live transcribe. You'll see here that my Samsung device gives me 2 options for closed captions, Samsung and Google. When I turn these on, I have the option to pick my text color, text size, and opacity for my captions. Live Transcribe is an Android application on the Play Store. This can be used to transcribe anything your phone hears. The 4th type of disability is vision. This can vary from color blindness to full blindness. Users with a vision disability may use a Braille keyboard and TalkBack or voice assistant. Pictured here is a soft Braille keyboard developed by Google earlier this year. This allows the user to tap on the phone as a Braille keyboard instead of using a hardware device. TalkBack and Voice Assistant are used typically as screen readers. Voice Assistant is available automatically on Samsung devices, but TalkBack is available through the Android Accessibility Suite, which I'll go over later. A user with a disability can have all 4 types of disabilities or any combination of the 4. Some users that are blind are not completely blind and have other vision issues. Some users that have hearing loss do not have complete hearing loss. Some users simply have sensitivities that need to be taken into account for ADA purposes. Why we do all the work. There are a lot of users out there that want to use your apps and can't. They want to buy your products and want to support your company, but are unable to do so. Imagine if a user entered your application and all they heard from their screen reader was unlabeled button. They'll be unable to check out, unable to navigate through your application. Generally, accessibility improvements will improve the look and feel of your app for all users. Issues with content description and touch target do not only affect users with disabilities. Making something easily readable and clickable is a good design practice. You can also be sued for lack of compliance. Domino's is a good example of this. In 2017, the Supreme Court ruled against Domino's in a case where a customer attempted to order a pizza using a screen reader and was unable to do so. Domino's argued that the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, was passed in 1990 before the internet became widely used. They also made an argument that there were no clear legal guidelines on how to make your site accessible. The Ninth Circuit decision stated that the website and app connected customers to the goods and services of Domino's physical locations. Basically, by not allowing the accessible use of their site to their goods and services, this still violated ADA laws. Domino's argument of not having clear guidelines was no reason for them to be unable to comply with them. Today, we look toward Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG for short. In 2019, web accessibility federal lawsuits hit a record number of 11,000 plus suits filed in federal court. Why do website accessibility lawsuits affect mobile apps? Now that courts are accepting lawsuits against mobile applications, anyone can be sued today. Domino's became the first case to expressly extend Title III of the Americans with Disabilities Act to mobile applications. Generally, a judge will give your company the chance to become at least partially compliant by a specific date. This shows a good faith effort toward becoming further compliant. Some companies choose to settle and not make changes, opening them to future lawsuits. Target is a good example of a big corporation that has made huge strides toward becoming compliant. The Target Android application can be used as a good example of meeting many accessibility guidelines. Hope Foot Locker will be a good example of this as well. We're going to go over Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. If we look at the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines website, you'll see that they'll have information for you on how to meet the guidelines, what the guidelines are, and a lot more documentation. I highly recommend that you look at this document and use it for future development. So WCAG was created by W3C, or the World Wide Web Consortium. They developed standards for HTML, CSS, and other languages. WCAG was developed as a W3C process in cooperation with individuals and organizations to create a single shared standard for web content accessibility that meets the needs of individuals, organizations, and governments internationally. There have been 3 updates made to WCAG. 2.0 was published on December 11, 2008. The next update, 2.1, was not published until June of 2018. 2.2 is scheduled to be published early 2021. I believe these updates will come out more frequently and faster due to the growing technology market. What is WCAG? WCAG defines 3 levels of compliance: A, AA, and AAA. Each guideline is listed with a level and how you are meant to meet it. It's best to test your app for accessibility and look to the guidelines on how to fix those issues. Level A is a minimum requirement of accessibility. Level AA is the level that most development teams are aiming to meet. This is the level that is legally required for certain sites such as banks. In a lot of cases, it may become impossible to completely meet AAA compliance due to the strictness, but it is something to strive for. The higher level you meet, the more users you'll benefit. To be A or AA compliant, you must meet all criteria for that level. Most guidelines are meant for websites and web apps, but these guidelines are not different for mobile, but have some language differences based on platform. For Android specifically, look toward Android guidelines on how to meet the guidelines and what they look like. How to test your app for accessibility issues. I'm going to go over a couple of tools that can be used to test your app for accessibility issues. You'll see here that I use the acronym A11Y. This is because there's 11 letters between the letter A and the letter Y. You'll see this acronym used all over the accessibility documentation. Accessibility Scanner is the first tool I'm going to talk to you about. This is an Android application available to you in the Google Play Store, and it will scan your app for specific accessibility issues. This is meant to be used in combination with other tools. Here's a video of how to use Accessibility Scanner. I go into my Android settings, and I go into my accessibility settings now that I have the Accessibility Scanner installed. I'll see under Installed Services Accessibility Scanner, turn it on, and it'll ask me for various permissions. This is because the accessibility scanner will scan your screen for different types of ADA issues. Here I'm going to scan the Samsung menu and show that there are no suggestions for how to fix that because it's already working. Test this on a sample application and show the issues that are presented. Here it tells me there are 3 suggestions on how to fix my app: touch target, item label, and image contrast. This button does not have a large enough touch target. This image button does not have a label or a high enough image contrast. The tool will tell me exactly what the ratios are that I meant to meet, what colors I'm using for my image contrast, and give me a Learn More button that takes me to a support page that tells me how to implement a fix, how to design to fix this problem, and how to test it in the future. The accessibility scanner is meant to be used in combination with other tools. We're going to go over more of them. What I'm going to talk to you about is the Accessibility Suite. This is also available on the Google Play Store. This application gives a lot of tools to users with disabilities to be able to navigate your phone and your applications. You'll see that there are categories under the Accessibility Suite that you can test with. There's screen readers, visibility enhancements, meaning enlarged text sizes or contrast, hearing enhancements, meaning closed captions, interaction, and dexterity. This is where you would configure your switch. If you have applications installed on your device that are meant for accessibility, they'll appear under Installed Services. That's where I found my accessibility scanner. You'll see that there are many tools also available under this. I turned on the accessibility menu. You'll see here on the last screenshot that on the bottom right corner of my screen, I have a little accessibility icon. This allows me to easily find shortcuts to accessibility tools. Another way to test your app is utilizing your Android UI tests. So espresso testing is used to write UI tests for your application. Here, you'll see that I set up a UI test and I added 1 line for accessibility checks. You only have to add this to each of your tests, and it will scan the UI for that class and give you a report of any issues found. Now we're going to talk about how to improve your app. We're going to talk about 3 main issues that we typically see in Android applications. And these are content descriptions, touch targets, and color contrast. Content descriptions are under the 1.1.1 WCAG guideline, non-text content. This is a level A compliance, and this states all non-text content that is presented to the user has an alternative text that serves the equivalent purpose. Basically, this means if I use an image button, I need to add a label to this button because there is no text context provided to the user when using a screen reader. The next one is touch target. Target size level AAA 2.5.5 in the WCAG guidelines. This was added in 2.1. This states the size of a target for pointer inputs is at least 44 by 44 CSS pixels. Even though this is a AAA requirement by WCAG guidelines, you'll see a lot of accessibility tools for Android issue complain of a higher level issue. This is because we depend on touch for our applications, unlike a website that can depend on mouse click. In the case of Android, we set our touch targets to 48 by 48. This can be done in multiple ways. You can add padding around a clickable area, you can set a minimum height and width, or use the Touch Delegate API provided to you by Google. The third type is contrast issues. So this is 1.4.3 contrast minimum, level AA compliance. The visual representation of text and images has to meet a contrast ratio of at least 4.5 to 1 or 3.0 to 1 in the case of large or bold text. Choosing correct colors for text can be difficult when trying to apply branding. However, improving these contrast ratios is a better design decision, even outside of accessibility, to make sure things are readable. There are many tools to test for these things, and I'm going to show you how I use the accessibility scanner to find these issues and resolve them. I'm going to show you how I would use the accessibility scanner on the sample application that I showed earlier. When I run the accessibility scanner, you'll see the 3 issues that were presented to us earlier. So the first issue is this previous button. I used a borderless button, but the touch target is not large enough. It's only 19 dp and it needs to be at least 48. This image button is missing a label and the image contrast is not high enough between the foreground and background color. This is telling me that I'm only at 1.3 and I need to be at 3 ratio. It gives me the background color and the foreground color. So first we're going to fix this borderless button. Now I used a text view that is clickable. I did this because I wanted it to be borderless and have a transparent background. Instead of fixing the touch target for this, I'm actually going to switch to a button. Using the right view element from Google will award you with a lot of different accessibility fixes without you having to do it yourself. Now making this a button will award me with correct padding as well as making my text all caps. Now I'm going to run my accessibility scanner on this again and show you what it looks like. All right, I'm going to run my accessibility scanner, and you'll see that my previous button no longer has an issue. You'll also notice that this is in all caps. This is actually what we want because another part of accessibility is making sure that any clickable text can be distinguished from any text around it. Typically, I would also add an accent color to that button and not only make it all caps, but for now this is acceptable. I'm turning on TalkBack and I have my captions on so you can and see what TalkBack is saying without having to hear all the text. So I'm going to go back to my sample application and click on my image button. Here it will say unlabeled button. Double tap to activate. By using an image button, I was automatically given that it's a button and double tap to activate read to the user. That makes it easier for me to simply have to add a content description to my button to resolve the issue of it not having a label. So let's do that together. If I go to my image button, first I'm going to fix my contrast issue. I'm going to set the background color to black because my image is white, just to fix the content issue. You can use different tools to test for how to fix your contrast, but for now, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to add padding to my button to clearly show the black background, and I'm going to add my content description here. You'll notice that I already added a string to my project for this content description, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. If I go to my string, you'll see that I need the email button A11Y, the acronym again, and I'm just going to use the word email. This is because, as you saw, it's already going to tell the user that it's a button. All I need to give it is a label. I can also do this programmatically. If I set the button's content description here, it will award me the same thing that doing it in the layout did. You'll notice that I'm writing my app in Kotlin. This is because at Foot Locker we're using Kotlin. We've updated our app code base to be completely in Kotlin. We also use Android X, and we've updated most of our layouts to constraint layouts. This helped resolve a lot of other accessibility issues and give us a lot more tools to use to fix our accessibility issues. I'm going to turn on TalkBack again and show you now that my button has the correct ratio and has a label that TalkBack will be able to correctly read this aloud. If I go back to my application with TalkBack on and I click on my icon, you will now see what it says. Instead of unlabeled button, it now says email button, double tap to activate. Making this text meaningful is important. Try not to be too verbose and try to use lower level language for people that have cognitive disabilities. Now I'm going to turn back off TalkBack and I'm going to run my accessibility scanner again to make sure I resolved all my problems. All right, now I have TalkBack off. I'm going to go back to my app and run my accessibility scanner. We're hoping to see no suggestions. So we resolved all 3 issues that were presented to us. Move forward in checking the rest of our application. I highly recommend that you use all the tools available to you on your mobile device. It is important that you experience your application the same way that another user with a disability will use your application, similar to how we do UX testing. We need to make sure that users with disabilities have just as good of an experience using your application as any other user. Use TalkBack. Check the TalkBack order. Use Voice Assistant because it's available on Samsung devices, which is a huge market, and Android. I also suggest buying a Switch and trying it out. Try using closed captions. Make sure that any dependencies that you add to your application are also ADA compliant. This will help you gain more customers. This will help you improve your app for the long run. These customers want to buy your products. They want to support your business, and all you have to do is make a few changes to make this possible. I have included some links to tutorials and further documentation on how to make your app accessible. I suggest looking through all of these and using all the tools to your disposal. Questions on how to make these changes in Java instead of Kotlin. There's a lot of documentation out there on how to do either, and Android has been building more and more tools to make this easier for you. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was a great talk. Accessibility is so important. As a reminder for everyone watching, any questions that you have, be sure to put into the Slack channel so that we can get them answered. We have a couple minutes here that we can answer questions. One thing that I was wondering was at Foot Locker, is accessibility something that you had a specific initiative for? Is it something that you kind of sprinkle in with the rest of your work? Is it something you've been doing for a while, or something that was like a recent thing?
So ever since I started working at the company, we've been talking about accessibility being an important part of our website. And so with the apps, as we've been rolling out different banners for our applications, we've been discussing any accessibility issues that come up as we release new versions. So we try to keep on top of them. We try to test with every version we release to make sure that we're catching any new accessibility issues that we're presenting and slowly changing it. It is ongoing. You may never resolve all the issues, but the more issues you resolve, the more customers you're going to help out. So we just try our best that we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. All right, I don't see any questions in the channel yet, so we will go to a little short break. If any additional questions come up, feel free to post them in the channel so we can get them answered. And until then, you have an 8-minute break until the next talk, so feel free to stretch your legs, fill your water, visit our expo, and meet our awesome sponsors. And we'll see you back here in a couple minutes. Thanks again, Sarah.
Thanks. Bye.